Hi, Mary, to the viewing
Hi,
audience.
everybody.
So we're just going to get to know Mary on this half an hour, and we're excited.
In little town Dupree, South Dakota, many years ago.
Many years ago.
Right.
And we could tell how we met. We all met a long time ago at a church. That was originally.
Right.
And then we just kept crossing each other's paths
Right.
through different friends and always different friends, always meeting and connecting up.
Right.
That she's doing different things, and I even went to her house where she had different dinners. Yeah, but the dinner too. I had her that dinner when we had the I don't know which dinner it was.
Seder dinner.
Yeah, the Seder dinner. Yep, we even had that.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was just like constantly one connection after another. So that's kind of fun. And so now she's living in our church home, one of our church buildings that we have that has different people from the church moving in there. And so we're kind of excited about that because she's bringing Jesus' presence into the home, which is nice, and a little bit of culture too with that. So years of background of she has a lot of history behind her. She has a lot of knowledge, and so it's good to bring that into the House of United Street Ministry home. So we're excited about that you're bringing in prayer we have in there. So we're going to ask her a few things. What was your childhood like?
Well, I was one of 6 children, and my mother got real sick about when I was like 11 years old, and she had to go to the hospital, and the nurse forgot to give her the anticoagulant, and she passed away. And I had a dream about her dying. It was just, I couldn't even tell anybody about because it was a real sad time. And then my father took all of us to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I finished growing up there. And we were in an Episcopalian church, and we didn't know about being born again, but we prayed because our mother taught us to pray. And I found out later, I remember her being so excited just before she died that she had just gotten born again. The Lord showed me that because she was all excited about reading the Word and sharing it with everybody. And we had a restaurant hotel business where she was able to talk to a lot of people. And I think it was a sad thing that happened, but it was a generational curse I found out later on about this premature death. And that was the spirit that plagued her family. And her mother died at 33. She died at 33, and I almost died at 33. But the Lord brought me through that because I said, I am not leaving my 6. I also had 6 children. I was the oldest one of 6, and I ended up with 6. And I just said, no, Lord, I'm not going to go. I mean, I didn't understand that it was a curse at the time, but I just prayed and had everybody praying that I would not die. And I got sick. After the surgery, I had the same surgery, gallbladder surgery. I ended up getting violently sick afterwards. Thought I was dying, but, the Lord brought me through that. And it ended up that as time went on, my family, I was married for 21 years with the 6 children and the same husband, but we were in the world. We were not living for the Lord. And, of course, we ended up in divorce. And then I woke up and said, God, I've really messed my life up. I need you. I need help. I've messed it up. And that's when I became born again. God sent someone to me, and I said the prayer with them, and a short time later I started going to church. And then when I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, it was like I was floating on air for 2 weeks. It was like, oh my gosh, I got baptized in love, so that the Lord, even though I was divorced, I was able to love my kids and be the right kind of mom, because for a while I was like, and just rationalizing that what I was doing wasn't all that bad. I wasn't hurting anyone when I was in the world, but God brought me out of all that, and thank the Lord for that. So I found a good church, eventually ended up into a mission church down in Phillips area, and that with Pastor Jan DeLeo. And I had known her early on when my children first got saved. They got saved through her first ministry, and so I worked down there. In the meantime, I got married again. I tried to be restored with my husband, but he didn't want to be restored, so there was no way we could be. But we were friends. At least every holiday I would have him come, and my children could interact. We were We were friends, and that was good. God restored that just through His love.
Mm-hmm.
And then after going down there, the kids, all of my kids, eventually, because some of them were touched by the worldly spirits we were involved in, were not living for the Lord at first, but eventually, because of serving the Lord in that capacity, being down there, we did street witnessing, we fed the poor, just like you're doing, and then I ended up being a teacher of the Turning Point class, which dealt with all the addictions and people's problems. We would pray with them and get the captives set free, and learned a lot about deliverance being down there. So, and that's always been a strong interest of mine, to see people set free, because I knew I needed a lot of deliverance, and had gone to, right after I got saved, went to a special counselor in St. Louis Park, got set free of a lot of things, and became a counselor for a couple of years.
Right.
Then the Lord sent me on to Bible school at Spiritual Life Church, and eventually, after going through that, though I had very little finances, the Lord helped me earn money to go on into the mission field, and I went out on 9 different trips with Pastor Judy and Spiritual Life Church, and since that time, a couple other trips, and then my husband, I met a new man, and we got married, and we had the like vision to serve and help people, especially in the healing ministry. We got involved with Benny Hinn Ministries, and we took people first by vans and cars, and then we got into bus ministry for 11 years of that, and we traveled and saw a lot of the country, and then we even got to go to Hawaii for 3 trips, one of which I won a trip by getting people to go. It was just the original plan of the ministry to get people motivated to start going on these trips. We would go, it would be 3 or 4 days of ministry, and then we would just stay for a little vacation, which I never dreamed I could have. It was a blessing. So that was our main interest, is seeing people get healed. Miracles happen when you're overseas. People are just like childlike faith. They want to get what you've got, because they don't have the choices of chiropractors and dentists and doctors and things and hospitals as much. So they will just come up in the prayer line and they receive. We even ministered to people that were orphans out in the trenches, and people that were from the garbage cities, and like Philippines. I was there twice down in Honduras, once over in Mongolia. Went through China. We came as tourists, and then go in and do the work up in the Mongolia. So we had a lot of unique experiences along the way. I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I saw so much happen that God did. He just not only saved many, many people, but many people were healed and set free.
Is there a thing that kind of stands out in your mind at this time that you could share?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was one of those. There's several things.
Yeah.
The one thing that stood out so much to me was when we were in Egypt, there were Muslims coming to our services. We had the first time they ever had an earthquake there was when I was on the trip. And unbeknown to me, back home, I knew he'd been backsliding. My second oldest son had been backsliding, but he heard that I was in earthquake. And he thought, oh my gosh, my mother's something's happened to her. And he just really repented during that time. I found that out later. But while we were there, these Muslims would come to the services after the earthquake happened. First night we were there wasn't the earthquake, it was the next night. And we drove through rubble that you wouldn't believe. Buildings that collapsed, because here we would have condemned those buildings. But because they didn't do that, they just utilized everything they had. There was just a lot. It took us a long time to get there, but when we came, all these people came.
Of
there
interview
were some
with Mary
spiritists that
Miracle.
came, and they were just
Stay
curious to see what was
tuned
going
for
on,
part 2.
And then people